What's up, Squadron? Aviation has given me a ton of amazing experiences. And more importantly, it's introduced me to a whole new family of friends. Join us tonight because we're cleared direct for some hangar flying. I'm Bryon Dembroski, and this is SuperAero Live. What's up, Av Geeks? It's Wednesday, which can only mean one thing. It's time for another episode of SuperAero Live, and boy, guys, I might be more excited about this than when we had one of the Thunderbirds on, because we're going to talk about J3s tonight. But first, before we do that, there is it's like a cavalcade of aviation stars in the chat right now. Wolficorn's here, Just Plain Silly's here, Aviator Show's here. Yes, this is the music that did intro your show when you were on. Brian's here, Red Bear Modeling's here, Pilot Annie's here, Tango and Juliet are here, Plane Lady's here. Plane Lady, I did not order my RV kit yet because I need a better job for that. Nick Moore is here. Dude, guys are drinking bourbon already. Let's hit it up. It's going to be awesome. Make sure, by the way, if you didn't see it last week, we had John from Stay Level Avionics, and I talked about simulators. I said that very weirdly. Simulators. See you later, simulator. We talked about that, and it was super cool. Go check that out. But right now, without much further ado, Joe's here. Also known as Bananas. How long do you hold the S? There's 9 of them.
There's 9, yeah. It's a bit much. I
like it. Why not 10?
I think I kept going until Instagram, I went 6, 7, 8, and then finally 9 wasn't taken, so I took that.
I love it. So I would assume most people... Zach Sherman's here. Hey, Zach. We're counting on you for a big joke tonight. I assume most people in the chat know you. But if they don't, you are kind of making a splash right now on Instagram and on in magazines, on the Facebook. And I'm going to just show right now, here's a couple of your shots. You're famous, man. Look at that. This is real stuff that you're in Plane and Pilot recently, I saw. Oh, I skipped the patriotic one. And that's your real hangar.
It is. Yep, that's my second home.
That's a real place. So we're gonna talk about your J3 and we're gonna talk about all that stuff in a minute. Man, look at that. Also, maybe I'll pull it up, but maybe the most... Guys, go check out Joe's Instagram feed for... I think it was on Instagram. The most hilarious version of the Bernie with the mittens meme, I think, was also you. So props for that one.
Yeah, that was... Yeah, thanks.
So anyway, Joe, I want to dig back. We're going to talk about all sorts of stuff tonight, but let's talk about first, take me back. We talk about this every week on the show. Take me back to how did you get started in flight? When did it begin?
I think it was probably most people that get involved with flying. When I was a little kid, I visited my grandmother. I lived in Jersey City. So I'd take the Turnpike, which I know is kind of a New Jersey joke, what exit you live off of. But we'd always pass Newark Airport, so I'd always see the airplanes fly and take off out of Newark. I always wanted to fly for Eastern, which I guess looking back, it's probably better off that I didn't. But so that was when I was first introduced to airplanes, and then I grew up in Jersey, and I lived somewhat close to Allaire Airport, which is now Monmouth Executive Airport. So I bugged my dad to take me down there to go check out the airplanes. I was probably 13 or 14. And I was just walking around the tarmac looking at the airplanes, and someone came out, and he was actually the owner of the flight school. And I was talking to him for a bit. and he actually owned a banner towing business out of the airport. And he said, "Hey, if you want to come work for me for this in the summers, rather than pay you, hourly, $5, $10 an hour for every hour you work, I'll give you a half an hour for flight training." So my mother wasn't too thrilled about that, me and my dad thought it was great. So I was a banner boy, setting up the banners that the airplanes would come pick up. I think they had Centabrias and Pawnees. So it was probably the best summer that I had. Every Saturday and Sunday, I was at the airport from 7 in the morning till 6, 7 o'clock at night, just setting the banners up. And that was pretty much it. Once I started doing that, I knew that's kind of what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Not fly banners, but just fly airplanes for a living.
I mean, I've never done either though. Like I'm not flying for a living, and I've never flown banners. But I mean, that seems cool for a while.
It
In the
was
beginning,
cool. It was cool, and I probably would have done it, but my mom was, yeah, you're definitely not, because she would come and see how they picked up the banners, and it looked pretty dangerous, and I guess it's somewhat dangerous. I would never do it now. I'll tell you that. At 40 years, 4 kids, I feel it's a little too risky for me now. But yeah, I did that for a couple summers, and then I ultimately was a flight instructor. And that's a flight instructor for like 600 hours or so. And then from there, I got hired at Colgan Airlines, flying a Saab
sure.
340, which is like a Swedish twin turboprop. And that was a rough job. I did that for about 7 months. And then I got hired at ExpressJet, or Continental Express, out of Newark, flying the Embraer. I think I was 24, 25 at the time, and I thought I was, the coolest person in the world flying a jet. And I was there until 2013, March of 2013, and I got hired at Spirit, where I've been going on 8 years now. So it's been
That's
an interesting
awesome.
ride.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, and I think, I mean, that's part, and it's funny, right? Like you'll post I think it was today or something. I saw you posted a photo of like the instrument panel of the J3, and you made some kind of like joke about like, oh, like no glass panels here, and then like all these people like erupted on you. They're like, oh, shut up, no glass panels are
Yeah,
important, and you're like, no, guys, like I
I
fly an
know.
Airbus, I fly like no, like I know, I just it's just a
And
different
it's
thing.
funny because, and I see it a lot now with some people that I know that are, let's say, flight attendants for Spirit, and they're getting all the ratings at ATP because they want to be professional pilots. And when you start out and you're flying like a 152, you always want to fly something bigger, faster, complex, and it's a way to say, because you don't really get to enjoy that experience because you're always looking forward to the next thing. And then you finally get there and you're like, this really isn't fun, and it's kind of boring, and I miss the GA aspect and the 152s and the tail draggers and the no autopilot, no glass cockpit. So I feel like a lot of people need to slow down a little bit and kind of enjoy that process, because you'll get there eventually, and you'll miss the small airplanes and the small airports and the people that you meet. And then unfortunately, flying a big complex jet just kind of gets to be a job, and it's not very much fun compared to small GA anyway.
And I can't imagine that, because I've said it on the show before, like I uh fly 172 now, and that compared to the J3, my previous experience, your current experience with the J3, like that even feels like, to a non-jet pilot, right? Like there's a big chasm of like development and difference in those two aircraft. Like I was on a podcast talking about it, and I was like, yeah, like think about it this way, like the complexity, like there's like extra whole extra systems, just even going up to a 172 from a J3. I can't imagine what that becomes, like moving up, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? So I I
yeah, and
I long for it too, I guess, is my point. Go ahead.
yeah, and it's funny because, like, on the Airbus, you have, these, like, all these different color hydraulic systems, all these electrical systems, these sophisticated things. But it's kind of fun as a captain on Airbus. And I tell my wife, she laughs, but I am the least hardest working person. I mean, I show up to the airplane and I check the logbook. And then I just kind of sit there and sip my coffee and watch everybody else do the work. So the FO is programming the box. Flight attendants are doing all their stuff. The gate agents are boarding everyone. The guys in the ramp are loading the bags, the fuelers. And I'm just sitting there looking at the paperwork, sipping the coffee, just waiting for everyone to close the doors and push back. And you call for checklist and you have a huge responsibility and you need to know a lot, but you really aren't doing much. You kind of just manage everybody else. So there's so much work involved in getting there, but once you get there, it's kind of an easy job. So it's a lot harder flying around in a 172, teaching someone how to land than it is flying an Airbus in the middle of the night down to, South America. So it's people laugh and they think I'm joking when I say that, but it's the truth.
The longer you're in a career, the easier that stuff gets. I'm feeling that same way too. In my like film producer career, it's starting to feel like that same thing where it's like, oh, like, am I forgetting something? No, I'm just doing my job. I'm just good at my job.
Yeah. I mean, I'll always do something really stupid on a trip that kind of humbles me and reminds me that I'm not as good as I think I am. But all in all, it's a pretty good and easy gig.
I love it. You guys heard it here first. Airbus captain, easy gig. We're gonna talk about J3s and stuff in a second, but I want to just dig into the chat here. Some folks kind of responding to what you're saying. Zach Sherman, still waiting for your dad joke, Zach. He says, interesting that Joe says this. I personally am much more excited about GA than Giant Jets. To put that in perspective for you, Joe, Zach's a student pilot who's getting started. Noah is throwing some shade your way. He says something, scare bus, something.
It's
no reaction. Drinks the whiskey. Love it.
It'll every now and then it does something, and you kind of look at the guy next to you, and you're like, what's it doing now? But when it all comes down to it, you could just shut off all the automation, and there you go. It's back to a regular airplane.
I love it. Just Plain Silly says that everyone's talking in the chat about your impressive collection behind you, but he says you have nothing on his red Solo Cup collection. Very funny. So I've been really excited to talk to you, obviously, and we've traded messages a little bit, like just super sorry, this one got me too. Delta Lima says, does Joe only fly yellow airplanes?
I know. Isn't that funny that I've had a couple people ask me like, oh, did you paint the Cub yellow because you fly a yellow Airbus? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. That sounds like a horrible idea.
Well, I mean, what they may not realize is that with Cubs, there's only like 3 options, right? They made like the yellow one, and then they made there was a very rare black with yellow lightning bolt, and then there's like the Flit Fire or something, which was like silver. And you probably know more. Is there another one?
Yeah, there was an orange one, like a fire orange one, and there was also, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was like I want to say like a powder blue, baby blue one as well.
Ooh.
Yeah, I could be wrong, and I probably am, but I'm pretty sure that existed.
If I were to ever like rebuild one, I would maybe do the black just because it would be different.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It'd be cool. Yeah.
So okay, so let's talk. You sent me a video. I've been waxing poetic on. This is what, episode 39. I've been waxing poetic about J3 flying for all 39 episodes, and no one gets it. But you have all this content that helps communicate that. So I'm gonna play this video real quick that you sent. It's just a little example of the kind of flying you're doing, and then unless people want to talk about the Airbus, I'm sure you'd be happy to answer those questions. But let's jump into J3 land.
Yeah.
that's so. It's just like that's idyllic to me. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm really pumped about it.
it's
Like,
awesome, man. It's awesome.
so talk to me a little bit about like your relationship with this J3. Like you were telling me before the show started that you were flying this morning, like before your kids got off to school, and I was thinking like, dude, I am like barely conscious and functioning before when I like put my kid on the bus. So like what?
Yeah, it's tough now because it's so cold in the morning, but it's like total therapy. What's really cool about the Cub is you can open the side window and then the door comes down and the window you can fold up. And obviously in the winter it's a little tough, but in the summer, I mean, there's literally nothing that could beat flying a Cub early in the morning or like late at night. You could fly over, like I fly over the pine barrens, and you could smell the pine trees, and just you could feel like the warm, humid air around you. I fly over the ocean, like on the beach, a couple 100 feet, and you could feel and smell like the salt air. I mean, it's awesome. And what's great about the Cub is you don't need to look really at the indicator. I mean, you just by the sound of the engine and the slipstream, you can kind of, and then you can kind of feel where your speed's at, and you can just focus on looking outside. And I mean, it's awesome. It's so much fun. I mean, this 172s are a lot of fun, 152s, all that stuff. But the Cub is it's something you shop on, you just go for a ride. And the fact that there's no electrical system, I mean, you hand prop it. I have a little handheld radio, but you're just kind of forced to look outside. And the view from the back is great. I mean, a lot of people ask me, oh, why don't you fly it from the front? I mean, you can't because of weight and balance. I could probably throw some weight in the baggage compartment or in the back seat, but the view is much better from the back, especially with the windows open. But it's great because you're going like 75 miles an hour on like a good day, but you don't really need to go anywhere fast. When you're flying around in a Cub, you don't really use it to go anywhere. So, I mean, it's awesome. It's really cool.
I think the door, like the door open, window up, which by the way, I think you mentioned this too, I saw once, like you can kind of use the door as a stall warning. Like I remember that, like watching it kind of flap, I'm like, oh, I'm getting slow. Like it's like, but like that experience is just so, it's like riding a motorcycle in the sky. I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. It floats up on you when you get towards that. It's like 38 mile an hour stall speed. And it's cool because you can open it and close it while you're cruising around. So you could, it has heat in it. It doesn't really work all that well. Like when I take my kids up, sometimes I'll start with everything closed and then I'll open the top. And then when they get comfortable, then I'll kind of open the bottom. So it's cool. It's cool to be able to do that on the fly.
Yeah. And so talk to me about how, so you're flying a yellow Airbus, and you've got actually, before we go there, how long have you had it? How long have you had the J3?
Not that long, actually. So I got my Tailwheel endorsement up in Aeroflex Andover with Damien Delgazo, who's a pretty awesome instructor. And it's one of the prettiest airports, I think, in the country, but especially in New Jersey. It's up in Andover, New Jersey. But I always wanted to get my Tailwheel endorsement because I always love the idea of a tail dragger. And I remember, I think when I want to say when I upgraded or when I was getting close to upgrade, I told my wife I just want to spend, whatever it cost me to go get that done. And I did. And then I started looking for an airplane. I've actually been looking for a Cub even long before I planned on buying one. But so I got my Tailwheel endorsement, and I think I had 12 or 15 hours when I actually bought the Cub, which was kind of interesting because I wasn't prepared to actually fly it. But I bought it not this past August, but the August before. I was on Barnstormers all the time, and this Cub kept popping up. Yeah, and I called the owner, and I was back and forth on the phone with him. And I remember I was talking to him, and he's like, "Hey, I appreciate you being serious about this Cub, but I have someone that's coming to look at it this week. And if you can't come down to look at it, I'm going to unfortunately have to sell it to this guy because he's a little closer and I want to move the airplane." And it's hard with 4 kids and a full-time job to kind of schedule for me to get down there. And then literally about a half an hour after that phone conversation, crew scheduling called me, and they had an open trip, a 4-day trip, and day one was one leg to Atlanta with like a 36-hour layover. And that's where the airplane was. It was in Mallard's Landing, which is like a fly-in right outside of Georgia, or right outside of Atlanta. So I landed there, and he was a Southwest mechanic, and he picked me up, and I spent the whole day there going through the logbooks. And he asked me if I wanted to go out and fly it, and I wasn't too comfortable with that because I only had 15 hours in a Cub. So we went up together, and everything checked out, and I told him that day I'd buy it. I didn't tell my wife that I was actually buying the airplane until after I'd already bought it. It's one of those things where it's better to ask for forgiveness than his permission. But I bought it that August, and I had someone ferry it up late August, and that's the rest is history, I guess. So I've put about 150 airplanes, I think, at it, somewhere around there.
So you're flying it. That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, if it's nice out, I mean, whether it's early in the morning or when my kids nap or after I drop I bring the kids home from school, I'm going out and flying. And even if it's only for a half an hour to go out and do some touch and goes or something, if it's nice out and I can get out there and fly it,
Rock on. And you froze, so hopefully you are still there. Oh, there you come back. It's coming back. Yeah. What I was going to say is the other thing that is really impressive to me is you have great taste in Cubs because they aren't all this cherry. Like, this is it's like shiny. Like, you can see the reflection of your hat in the, like, ceiling fabric there. Like, that's not super common in J3s.
No, and the reason why is because the guy that had me groomed it and crashed it, basically, and they had to replace the wing and some other things. They had a prop strike, but it worked out for me because a lot of the stuff on the airplane is relatively brand new, so it kind of worked out.
Yeah, I mean, it totally worked out because it's they're not normally that shiny.
Yeah, and a lot of people ask me what I use to clean it, and actually you just edge furniture polish to clean the fabric. It works really well.
That's awesome. That's super awesome. Question coming in. Good tip. Plane lady, Christine, the plane lady, is wondering about your favorite trip you've taken in the J3.
My favorite trip, it wasn't that long of a trip, but it was actually up to Aeroflex Andover where I got my rating, my tail endorsement, I should say. I took off out of my home airport and basically followed the Delaware River. It was like 100, 200 feet maybe, and just took that all the way up. It was like an hour flight to get up there, but it's a really, really pretty area. It's a really pretty flight. So to take the Cub there, I think was so far my favorite flight.
Yeah, I mean, that, especially if you've got the door open, right? And you're like kind of like hovering there.
Yeah. It's awesome. You really can't beat it.
So as I dig through here for some other questions people are asking, the Wolficorn is saying, can't forget the fuel cap on the J3. No, you certainly cannot.
Yeah.
I don't know if we covered this. Where are you based now? Where are you flying out of now? Martin's wondering that.
So I keep the airplane at Flying W, which is November 14 in Lumberton, New Jersey. And so the airport, like a lot of airports, unfortunately, is kind of rumored to be closing in the near future. They want to sell it to like land redevelopers, which is really, really sad for a number of reasons. Number one, because it's an airport, obviously, but also there's 50 hangars there. And in New Jersey, like I think most places, it's really hard to get a hangar. So that'd be kind of sad. But even worse than that is the row of hangars that I'm in. I've met some really, absolutely incredible people that I'll definitely be friends with for life. And we're all out there on the weekends. Everybody's hangars open. We have barbecues. So it's a really great community, which if the airport closes, I don't think that'll go away, but it'll just be harder to maintain that. But but flying W is where I keep the airplane.
And Martin's actually following up with another question. He's asking about where's your Airbus base. He's a recently retired airline captain as well.
Okay. So for Spirit, I'm based in Atlantic City, which a lot of people don't even know that airport actually had commercial traffic, which is great because we park, like I'll drive in the employee lot, I'll park my car, and then I'm literally in the Airbus in like less than 5 minutes, which is great because I used to be based in Newark and you'd have to find a parking spot and then wait for a bus, and then it was just a nightmare. So Atlantic City, ACY is my airline base, which is great.
That sounds kind of like I live just down the road from. I'm pointing to it like you can see it through my basement wall. I live just down the road from Milwaukee, Mitchell International, and that's my passenger experience. Right, is like park the car, like walk across the bridge, and like walk right onto the plane. Like there's no. I mean, obviously you have to go through security, but like there's like you can time it if you time it just right where you're just walking on, a minute or two before the door closes and no one's looking at you. Everyone's just like, yeah, this is normal. We're just chill here.
Yeah, I mean, when we taxi in, I mean, I don't want to say that I've done it before, but you're taxiing the Airbus in, you could actually remote start your car in the parking lot. So it's it's kind of neat. Not me, but people have.
I've heard that some people may have done that. Okay. Tailwheel question for you as someone who bought that aircraft with only 15 hours of tailwheel. Fly with the Guys is wondering, speaking of ground looping, are you afraid of that? It's one of the reasons I don't want to get my tailwheel, but also one of the reasons I want to.
I'm not afraid of it. I'm aware of it. And it's a little different because like a lot of guys that I fly with at the airline, they're like, aren't you worried about crashing or ground looping and then you're going to lose your job? And like that's not really what happens anyway. I think maybe I'd be afraid of it because it might be somewhat embarrassing, but there's that old saying that when it comes to tailwheel airplanes, there's those who have ground looped and those who haven't and those who will, I guess. Meaning that everybody will at one point. But how I kind of combat that is if it's like over 10 knots of wind, I just don't bother going up because it's not really fun and I don't really have to go anywhere. And there's an old saying, the airliners, but when in doubt, chicken out. So I just, if it's too windy or too much of a crosswind, I just don't go. And if you find yourself, I mean, I try to go up if the winds are a little bit gusty, I try to go up so I stay proficient. But if it's outside of my comfort level, I just don't bother going up because it's not fun and I don't want to ground loop or damage the airplane. But I know a couple guys that have, even at my local airport, and it's not a big deal. You just, you learn from it and you keep going. But I'm not really afraid of it. I'm just aware of it, I guess you could say.
I'll raise my hand as someone who has. And I was lucky that it was in it was like a slow motion ground loop, which I can't decide if that's scarier or better. Like, because if it's like fast, right, you could pop a wing into the ground, you could like really damage. But in slow motion, the most frustrating thing is you've got time to try everything, and nothing works, and then you're just like, oh, I guess this is my life now. I'm going.
You're just along for the ride.
Yeah, but like really slowly. Yeah. So I'm glad that was during my training. Glad I got it out of the way. But yeah, I think that's the right mindset that I've heard a lot of experienced tail dragger pilots say. Is it's really all about knowing your limits and knowing the capabilities of the aircraft in the wind. Really.
Yeah, and the other thing, because the one time that I feel like I was gonna ground loop the airplane, I just added power, went around. So I'm always ready for it. So I'm always ready to just, if it looks like things are starting to get out of control, I just go around and try it again. But yeah, I haven't yet, but I may. I mean, who knows?
Maybe you'll break the saying. Maybe it won't. You'll be the first.
with my luck, I'll have it on. Someone will have it filmed, and it'll be all over the internet, and I'll have to live with it. But that's okay, no big deal.
So okay, so here's where I wanted to go with this next. Is I wanted to ask you. So you're flying for Spirit. You get the J3. When did the kind of have you always been into photography as well? Because that, I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I've always liked photography. I would, I was a big car guy, so I would photograph my cars that I had. Until my most recent one got stolen, so I couldn't photograph that one anymore. But I like my kids and like nature photography, and then I've always loved airplanes. And then when I got an airplane, I'm like, hey, maybe I should, start photographing this thing because I love airplanes and I love photography. So it just kind of makes sense.
and then oh, by the way, thank you, Nick, and thank you, Nathan, earlier, you guys, for the super chats. We really appreciate the support for the show, guys. It's so awesome. There's another question. I think you sent this photo over. I want to make sure I find it. Yeah, here we go. Nathan Ballard was wondering about this flight. So, I think a lot of people think about like flying up the Hudson in general might be a little intimidating because there's a lot of traffic in a narrow space and you're over water and also hashtag Sully, all that stuff. Like,
Yeah.
like to do that in a Cub. Like, can you talk a little bit about what that flight was like? Because this is like God bless America right here.
Yeah, so the last time I did that, actually, the World Trade Center was there. It's the original one, you could say. It's been a really long time. And because the Cub doesn't have a radio or ADS-B, I was a little hesitant. But asking on some of the Facebook groups, they said the Hudson River Corridor has been pretty quiet because of the COVID. And a couple of times that I've gone to LaGuardia with work, you come up over the Hudson, let's say, and I didn't see it. It didn't seem like it was too busy. So I went early in the morning. I stopped in Old Bridge Airport for gas, and then you hop right on over, and not a long flight at all. And I did it 3 or 4 times, and one time I saw another aircraft, and it was actually a helicopter. And it was kind of funny because they were telling me that I wasn't allowed to be there because I don't have ADS-B, which is actually not the case because my aircraft was certified with that electrical system. So I was feeling okay. But yeah, there was no other traffic at all. And you had the paper chart, and I made, there's like CTAF frequency, a beating the lady, the clock, I think the World Trade Center, and then a couple other fixes. But it wasn't busy at all. I did it early in the morning. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I was shocked at how quiet it was because it was just me just circling. And actually I went one other time with another fellow airline guy who has a Cub. We went up together and it was just us. And I was actually shocked. It wasn't busy at all. I wouldn't do it if it was busy because then it takes the fun out of it. But yeah, when we did, it wasn't busy, and it was dead calm too. So it was perfect.
Do you have any, other than going early, do you have any other tips for folks who are, I mean, it's going to be well before I'm out east, but.
Yeah, just, they have, I forget where the FAA has it, but you can Google it. They have like a PDA do the Hudson River Corridor and just kind of be really familiar with the fixes that they want you to report. You're at the altitudes and the flow of traffic. And like if you circle the Statue of Liberty, they want it a certain way at a certain altitude. So just be really familiar. This way, everybody that's doing it, you kind of know what to expect from each other. It looks intimidating, but once you read over it, it's really not. It's pretty simple. It's not bad at all. And if anyone is flying up in the Northeast, I mean, you have to do it. I mean, it's awesome.
Is that one of those like fly chart things? VFR fly chart? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I think you need to have the actual paper chart on you, not just like on electrical, like your iPad or anything. Because I noticed ForeFlight didn't have it, but I ordered the paper chart from Sporties, and it's like the Hudson River Corridor chart. It's kind of like a VFR flyaway chart. and it's, you know, gigantic to scale, so it's really easy to see everything. And it has the frequencies, the flow of traffic, the altitude, all that stuff. So it's once you have that, you'll look at it and there's really nothing to be afraid of or intimidated by. It's pretty easy.
By the way, your people are claiming like dark magic with these photos. I'm gonna guess it's a 360 camera out on a pole off the struts. How you doing that?
Yeah, that is exactly how I did it. So in most photographs, if you look really closely, you can see where the mount is. Like on that picture there, it's right underneath. It's on the strut, right underneath to where it meets the wing. And it's I use flight fix mounts. So you can really get it from Amazon, but just like an adjustable boom pole, and then you slap the 360 camera on there. But what's funny, like in that picture, it looks like you're, 30 feet in front of the airplane, but the camera itself is not out further than the propeller. So it's incredible what the 360-degree cameras can do, because the pole it's just not out that far in that picture. It does an incredible job, but yeah, I feel like an idiot sometimes in taxiing out. Luckily, the hangars are kind of away from the flight school and the other where the other airplanes are, because you're taxiing out with this, selfie stick, and it's kind of bouncing around a little bit, and it just kind of looks funny. But yeah.
Yeah. So, is there a favorite? Plane Lady is wondering if you have a favorite photo of yours, and I don't know if it's in the stack that you sent me, but is there a favorite one right now?
No, I feel like every time I have a picture and I'm like, oh, I really like this is my favorite, my new favorite. I kind of like them all, I guess. But I don't think I have a favorite one. Maybe the one in the hangar, I guess I kind of like, just sitting there.
The one with the American
background.
I'll get to it. This one is the one you put Bernie in, which I should have pulled that up.
Those are fun too. Those kind of pictures.
We'll get there eventually. There it is.
Yeah, that's a cool one.
That would sell a lot of Piper Cubs if Piper was still making them.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Some questions coming in about your family. Like, are you flying a lot? Let me see if I can find one to put up on the screen here. Like, you mentioned that you take your kids with you. Like, are they? You have a pretty aviation-centric family, or is it kind of catch can?
No. Yeah, so we have a family has a beach house in Ocean City, New Jersey, which is I don't know, it's like 10 miles south of Atlantic City, and there's actually a little municipal airport there. So in the summer, I'll fly the Cub down there, and we'll keep it there for the weekends, as long as it's not going to rain or anything. So then I'll take one kid, I'll fly them there for the weekend, and then when we fly back home, I'll take the other kid. But they don't really, especially now in the winter, they don't fly too often. I have 4 kids. I have an 8-year-old, a 5-year-old, and then the twins are 2. And I haven't taken them in the airplane yet. But the 8-year-old and the 5-year-old I've taken. And unfortunately, because of the coronavirus, a lot of the airport diners were closed. So that's kind of unfortunate. But they do like to fly, and but it's kind of weird. I don't want to say I get super anxious, but I definitely get a little anxious when my kids are flying in the airplane with me for whatever reason. So
I obviously, like, your skills as a pilot are on par. I feel like, and again, I haven't taken my kids up yet, but the thing that occurs to me a lot is that I really just want them to have like a super awesome experience. And so that's where my anxiety comes from. It's like, I'm not worried about like hurting them, but I am worried about like them being like, oh, this sucks. And if it sucks because I, flew wrong, or that it was gusty that day and we went up anyway, like that's where my anxiety comes from.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to make sure they're this is the best thing ever.
Yeah, this is so cool. And it's funny you mentioned that, because one day we were leaving Ocean City to come back home, and I was really, really concerned because it was going to be really bumpy, but I had to get the airplane back. So my oldest came with me, and I remember I was just like a pit in my stomach because I knew she was gonna hate it. But she's, oh, I want to go, Dad. I want to go. And we took off, and like 5 or 10 minutes later, she was passed out sleeping the entire way. And I don't know how she slept the whole way because it was like uncomfortably bumpy, but she did. So it was pretty cool.
There you go. You can't ask for anything better than that if they're just gonna
Yeah,
pass out during it.
yeah.
Let's see here. I'm just guys. If you have any other questions about J3 flight with, and so by the way, like you're being very humble, but like you've had some spreads now, right? Like some people, like you're like, is it aircraft centerfold? Centerfold's a weird way to say it nowadays, but like,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
like you've got some, like you're in some magazines and stuff now, right?
Yeah, so the EAA was in the centerfold for that, and then the March issue of Flying. It's funny that you guys asked about the Statue of Liberty one, but there is going to be a Statue of Liberty. I'm not exactly sure which picture it is, but that's going to be in Flying magazine for March, and then EAA Vintage is going to have a kind of like a couple page spread eventually. I'm not sure when they're going to put that in there, but they so I'll be in that one. And then I think I have one or two photos in Aviation Weekly or Aviation Week, I should say. So yeah, there's a couple out there, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and then the one we were talking about. I keep bringing up the Bernie one just because I thought it was so hilarious. I saw Plane and Pilot was like, who is the mystery creator of this meme?
Yeah,
and you're like, no, but
I know.
Like you didn't research, you didn't even try to research it at all. It's like very obvious it's me.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? I know.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I mean, do you have any hints for folks who are looking to take, like, we've had some aircraft photographers on the show before. I think what's really exciting about your stuff is it's so dynamic, right? Like this photo here, right? Like it's like, I think oh, sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna say it resonates because it is how I feel when I fly those aircraft.
Well, see, that's the thing. I know it kind of sounds really corny, but I really, like, I love flying the Cub. It's such a different type of flying, and I try to take pictures because words just sometimes don't do it justice, and even pictures don't, but I try to get as close to how I felt that day or what it feels like to fly that airplane that day. I try to portray that in the pictures. So, like, I'm a big fan of, like, shooting into the sun with the sun flare because it just, it looks magical, but that's kind of how it feels when you're flying early in the morning in the summer and there's, like, a low level of like a little bit of haze, and it's just, I mean, it's awesome. So I try to emulate that in my pictures, and some I get across great, some not so great, but that's kind of what my goal is. And for people that are looking to take really good pictures, it's really all in the lighting. It's that golden hour. It's that hour after from sunrise to that hour after sunrise, and then the hour before sunset to sunset is the ultimate lighting to really help with pictures.
And also, incidentally, the best time to fly a J3.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
that's yeah, yep, that is exactly right.
Like all my favorite flights in the Cub, because I think I don't have as much time in a Cub as you do. I should have checked my logbook before this. I think I have like 70 hours in a Cub, and all my favorite flights are golden hour landing on grass, like in Wisconsin we don't have any terrain really, right? But like over the farm fields, like smelling it's weird to say, but like it's kind of cool. People are going to get on me about this. It's kind of cool to like, you're like, oh, like I can smell the cows down there. It stinks, but it's cool.
Yeah, you really can. And like it's like I said, I fly over some areas where you could smell the pine trees, or you could smell someone's like has a fire pit going. You can smell that. I mean,
those are better smells than manure. I'm like, the manure smells great.
No. In a Cub, anything smells great though. So yeah, it's not so bad.
Speaking of which, no one I think believes me, but maybe you can corroborate this. Cubs just smell good in general. something about that. They all smell the same, and they all, maybe it's just because I have so many good memories in them. But it's like a little bit of history with a little bit of avgas. Must be something about the fabric and the steel. I don't know. Maybe I'm sounding super weird now.
No, I 100% agree with you. It definitely has a certain smell to it. Yep. I mean, it does. It does.
Joe's like, where are we going with this? Where are we going next? We're talking about manure. We're talking about. No, man, this is so cool. I mean, do you have like what's next? What's next for you? Like, it's pretty cool. I mean, obviously your work's getting seen a lot. People are watching it. You're doing some epic. I mean, and these. I think what's interesting to me is a lot of these epic flights, and I'm off camera, but I'm doing like air quotes here. These are like your coffee, your morning coffee, right? But like,
yeah,
what's next for you in the Cub?
It could probably use a little more power. It's a 65 horsepower one, and it's fine for me. But in the summer, like some of these smaller grass strips that I want to take people in and out of, it gets a little hairy with another person. So it could definitely use a little more power. But I don't need. Like I see some of these guys with their carbon Cubs, and it's like I don't need a $250,000 airplane to have fun. It'd be cool to go out and carry a whole bunch of gear, land on a gravel strip, but I don't, for where I am in a stage of my life, the 65 horsepower Cub is all I need. I don't need. I'm gonna take it a little farther this summer and go to some more places that I haven't been. Hopefully, I don't know about Sentimental Journey, which every year in Lock Haven, you go out and camp on Lock Haven with the Cubs, all the other Cubs. Hopefully they're doing that this summer. But I would probably take it there. But yeah, I'm still, I have one friend who has a Cub, and he just bought a pit, and he's like, "Aren't you bored of the Cub yet?" And I'm like, "Not even close, man. I'm gonna keep this airplane forever." So we'll see. And that's what's nice, I think, about flying the Airbus is I don't have that itch to fly a high performance airplane. I mean, maybe in the future I'd do aerobatics, but I don't know. I don't feel like I need to do that or need to have a faster airplane or a Carbon Cub or a Legend Cub. I mean, they're cool, but the simple 65 horsepower Cub, I think that you got a hand prop, I think is perfect.
Actually, I was going to ask you if yours had a starter in it, so that answers that. You're hand propping it too, which is awesome.
Yeah, and when I first got the airplane, I didn't chock it, so I learned really quickly how to hand prop it the right way. Fortunately, I didn't break anything or hurt anybody or hurt myself, but yeah, hand propping by yourself can be pretty tricky if you don't know what you're doing.
I've only done it like once or twice, and that was enough. The flight school I learned at had a start. They had like one with a starter, and I was like, that was the one that if you were renting it, they're like, yeah, like unless someone's like they wanted you to be able to, unless you were staying at the home airport, they wanted you to have the starter in case you needed to restart at some other airport. So, yeah, it's interesting. Like I think the thing about the Cub is that because your workload, tell me if you agree with this, your workload is lower in terms of like staying in front of the airplane, right? Staying ahead of the aircraft. So you have all this extra time to absorb like what's going on around you, right? Like your senses, like we're talking about smells, right? We're talking about like being able to observe things because we're only going 75 miles an hour or whatever. That I feel like is what opens it up and makes it never feel old, right? Like my longest flight in a Cub was like a little over, literally like almost ran out of gas, like 4 hours with the an aux tank, and like I was ready to get out, like my butt hurt at the end, but like I wasn't like I never got bored. Like it's like, all right, we're gonna go this way for 2 hours. Like we're gonna straight this direction for 2 hours. Like I never got like bored, like flying it. Whereas like I feel like that happens to me in the 172 sometimes.
Yeah, because I feel like a 172 or like the they're very mission oriented. So A to B, they're as quick as possible. With the Cub, there's no VOR, there's no mixture, at least not on mine. There's no, It's a fixed pitch prop. There's no fuel selector for switching tanks. Once the airplane's up in the air, I mean, there's really nothing to do but just look around. And then, you have your throttle in your left hand, a stick in your right hand, and use your feet just to go look around. And when you're flying the airplane, you're looking down, mostly just looking around at trees. And, hey, that looks interesting. You go over there and go take a look at that. But, yeah, I'd say the majority of your attention is outside of the airplane rather than looking at the instruments and all that other boring stuff.
That's the other thing is you can just go, you don't really think about it. Just go, and you're not high because it would take too long to get up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, like with the airlines, other corporate jets and stuff like that. I mean, there's just so many things you have to do before you can actually fly the airplane or push off the gate. With the Cub, I mean, you do pre-flight, you just start it, and you're off the ground in a couple minutes. It's perfect.
It's the best. I don't know. Maybe I hope everyone should buy one. My wife doesn't watch this show, so I can say out loud that my goal this year is to buy a J3, and I'm like on Barnstormers every day, trying to just like get a sense for the market. And there's one right now. I don't even know if it's a good aircraft. It looks like well used. But I want to buy it because the trip back would be amazing. It's in Walla Walla, Washington. Like, how amazing would that be to fly all the way from Walla Walla to Wisconsin in a J3? It would take like a week, but that would be an adventure with a capital A. Like, that would be insane. So that's the other part of it.
Well, another thing, you're going to be very hard to find an airplane that the acquisition cost is as low as that. Fuel price, you're not going to get an airplane that burns less gas. The annuals are probably less than $1,000 a year. The insurance is relatively cheap. So if you want to get out and fly an airplane, I mean, a Cub is probably the most cost-effective way to do it.
I'll make sure to cut that little chunk out and then send that to my wife.
So it's your wife, yeah.
But you're right, though. I mean, it's an interesting thing. Like we've been talking a lot about experimentals on the show lately, and I talk about RVs. We've had a lot of RV builders on the show. And I always say to them, like, well, the one thing is that, like, that burns a lot more gas. I mean, you're going fast. Like, it's a very efficient aircraft, right? Burning a lot more gas. Like, I could get a Cub. And they're like, well, just, like, throttle it back, But I feel like I've been doing these, like, calculations in ForeFlight with, like, the 172 versus the Cub. And there's, like, a certain sweet spot distance where the 172 gets there first, but the J3 burns less gas still, even though it's slow. And I'm like, there it is, right? Like, I don't care that I'm in the air an extra 30 minutes or an hour, depending on what the wind is doing. But, like, I don't mind if it's cheaper.
Yep. You just can't bring any baggage, but other than that, it's all right.
Well, yeah, or anyone with me, because I've been dieting, so I can make room for that wind balance. We're almost out of time. I can't believe it. Can we play a game together? Would you be up for that?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
You into it? So this is a game called Short Final. There's no points. Oh, the RV builders in the chat are like, they're like, we're going to get you, Ryan. We're going to get you to build an RV. So this is Short Final. I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions, short answers. We'll just crank through them. There's no points. You already won. There's no winners or losers here. It's the least stressful part of your day. So let me put on the very dramatic music and then start our timer. There we go. All right, Joe. Hands down, best thing about flying a J3.
It's fun.
Okay, easy. What's the worst thing?
Cold.
I'd agree with that. I think you may have said it before, but what's the longest you've spent in the longest trip you've done?
Probably hour 20.
Okay, there you go. What about the most underrated modification to a J3 so far for you?
Wheel pants.
That is very controversial that you said that.
Yeah, I know.
All the J3 guys are like, what? What about, so let's talk about the Airbus, like, or actually anywhere, coolest airport you've ever landed at.
Bogota.
That's pretty cool. What about your favorite military aircraft?
A10.
There you go. You can buy those at IKEA now. I saw the plans on the internet. What about, let's talk about your favorite passenger.
Definitely my oldest daughter.
Is she the one who, she's the one who slept the whole way back?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. Oh, here we go. Waukesha Pilot wants to add one. He says, Lena Peak or Richa Peak. In the Cub, there is no mixture, so you just go with what it's set at, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, you can adjust the mixture by the carburetor, but yeah, it is what it is.
You hope it's right.
Yeah.
I flew
you can
one.
Adjust it seasonally, but.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, I flew one with like, it was like this weird, it was like very long, like comically long mixture knob, like back to the back seat. And I was like, oh, when do I do that? And the instructor was like, you don't touch that. Don't touch it.
Yeah.
He's like, you're going to mess it up.
Yeah, so, makes it easy.
Right. This has been cool. Joe, thank you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, 2, thanks for having me.
Thanks for sharing your passion for vintage aviation. I feel like it's part of the scope of avgeekdom that needs a little boost, and you're kind of like doing that right at the right time. So just thanks from one random avgeek to another. Thanks for doing
absolutely. That. My pleasure. So
this has been great. Now they're debating about wheel pants in the chat. We better... one last one. Track, because you're an airline guy. Are you track up or north up guy?
Track up, 100% track up.
See, I'm a north up. I think I'm north up. I don't know. It's been a while since I've flown. All right. Let's get... before we start any more flame wars in the chat. Joe, thank you so much for being on tonight. It has been awesome to get to know you. And everyone else in the chat, thanks, guys. This is I love you all in the chat. It's so good to have you. I think we all just need to buy J3s. Maybe we'll call Piper. I mean, I know you can get some knockoffs. That's not very kind. There are many people who make them now, but we got to get the like OG 65 horse Pipers in production again. That's maybe 2021's goal. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to tune in next week. Jen Pierce, air traffic controller, is going to be on, so come ask all your questions. It's just going to be a barrage of what do I do this or what do I do that or what are you going to tell me to call you. It's going to be a lot of folks with questions, and she's going to be really excited to answer them. So everyone, stay safe, keep flying, and we'll see you next week.